Presentation is on photovoltaics. I have a company called The Root Cellar where I sell, install, do consulting work and maintain solar arrays and wind turbines, and I've been doing that for almost 27 years. One thing that I also have a full-time job with Muscatine Power and Water, and I'm their energy services advisor, and I do energy efficiency and renewable energy for the entire city. And so when I start this presentation, I would be amiss if I didn't talk about energy efficiency first, because when I go and visit homes, a lot of times people haven't done the energy efficiency first, and the purpose of this slide is to show you that for every dollar you spend on energy efficiency, you save $3 on the cost of the renewable energy system. So these systems are expensive, and the best way to get the cost of your system down is to practice some energy efficiency techniques before you do the renewable energy. This gives you an idea, this slide here, of the value of energy efficiency. If you wanted to use a combustion coal turbine, it's going to cost you 6.7 cents per kilowatt hour. Energy savings costs 2.4. Muscatine Power and Water, where I work, we have a policy that we're making the city as energy efficient as possible. The excess generation that we have, we sell on the wholesale market, and we use that revenue to keep our rates down. We haven't raised our rates in 6 years, and we don't expect to raise them for another 10. And it's all due to energy efficiency within the community and within our facility as well. Another slide, DSM is demand side management, energy efficiency, and you can see, and this is a relatively old slide, it's 5 or 10 years old. These numbers have gone up exponentially, at least the coal has. I'm sorry, the natural gas. Suggested improvements that we do within the community: convert incandescent exit signs to LEDs in businesses. That's worth about $70 a sign a year to the industry. Change incandescents to compact fluorescents. Pretty much anymore, that's a no-brainer. It wasn't when this was done. T12 to T8, those are the big fat 4-foot fluorescent bulbs. You change them to one that's about a 1/2 inch in diameter, and you can cut its consumption in half. The big one in industry are these 460 metal halides. Those are the big can lights you see in warehouses. They use 460 watts an hour. That's a 1/2 kilowatt an hour. You go to a T5 and it goes down to 234. Cuts it in half.
Real question. Will those numbers be on your website?
Yes. This whole thing is out there.
Well, I mean, besides that, the extra little things that you're saying, like
the extra little things, no, that's why that's why I'm giving the presentation.
Okay, okay, so we need to write those things down.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes, yeah, because I live a lot in here. This is my outline, basically. I will give you another website. Is go to mpw.org and click on energy efficiency, and it expands upon all this energy efficiency stuff quite a bit. Okay. Another one is motion sensors and premium efficient motors. A 5% increase in efficiency in a motor is a 20% decrease in its consumption. The other big one, and I'm going over these fast because we're here to talk about PV. Air compressors. If you drill a hole with an air compressor, it's cost you 8 cents. If you drilled it with an electric drill, it would cost you 1 cent. It's an 8-to-1 ratio. It's the most expensive in utility in a business. I'm going to skip over this one. This is, and quite honestly, I think it stops in 2005. This is what we did in Muscatine with that energy efficiency, and it's way up here someplace right now. We're up to 58 million kilowatt hours saved. And it wasn't rocket science. Energy is transported from the sun to the earth via the light spectrum and via photons. Photons are carried in light. They are little packets of energy that when they hit electrons, they will move them, okay? And that's what photovoltaics is about. It's basically a game of pool. Here's a light spectrum. What they're showing here is the segment of the light spectrum where the most photons are. They're in the yellows, the blues, the reds, the violets. They carry on through the rest of the spectrum, but they don't have the quantities that they do. So that's why when you see a solar module, the face of it tends to be blue. Some of them are more towards the black, but that's what it is. The other thing that happens to these photons as they come through the atmosphere is 40% of them are either reflected back into space or absorbed by the clouds. Only 60% of the energy that comes from the sun makes it down to the Earth's surface. But when it does, 1 square meter is equivalent to about 1,000 or 1 kilowatt, or 1,000 watts. Okay? I say it's about 3 feet by 3 feet. It's actually a little bit more than that, but I was raised in the not in the metric system. Here's how it all breaks down, though, and this is all about the efficiency. There's 1,000 watts available. The theoretical that we can extract are 290. The best they've done in the laboratory is 220, and by the time it gets to market and mass-produced and the modules that we see out there today, you're looking at about 100 watts. A lot of people look at this and they go, oh my God, that's not very efficient. They're only 12 to 18% efficient, and the thin films are about 6 to 8, okay? Photosynthesis, where oil comes from, is 6%, okay? And that's with it in the ground buried for 64 million years, and you haven't touched it yet. So this is an extremely efficient way because it's delivered to every one of our doorsteps every single day. And I'm going to say one more thing on here that it's not in here. We just did research in the last week on this because my son, who lives in Arizona, wanted me to put an array on his house, and I went to figure production, and I don't know what they get in Arizona. So I started doing research on it. I finally found a place in Yuma, Arizona that had data on it, and an array that I have in Anamosa, Iowa, outproduced an array in Yuma in August. I was aghast. I couldn't believe it. For 20 years, I've always believed that they had more sun in Arizona than they do here. They do. They have more sun, but as that temperature goes up, the efficiency falls off, and what happens is it levels the playing field between the Midwest, actually the whole country, is pretty much on a level playing field in terms of production, not necessarily in solar irradiation, but in the amount of kilowatt hours, which is what we're really interested in, doesn't vary a whole lot throughout the country. The cold weather works in our advantage. Even though it's overcast, it works in our advantage. And that's something brand new to me, and I wanted to share it with you. Yeah, the next thing is the angle, what they call the angle of incidence. If you lay a solar panel flat, then maybe 15, 20% you're going to lose in production. I've got a motor home out in the parking lot that we use for a display, and I've got 2 arrays mounted this way because it's a huge problem driving down the road with solar panels up. And I could automate them, but I'd be sure to go and forget to let them down. So I just mount them flat. I sacrifice the 10 or 20%. I've got one I set up for the show so people can see. But that's the difference. You can gain efficiency by setting the angles. And you can change those. The arrays that we have out that are fixed, we change them twice a year. We change them in September and March, I believe. I can get the exact dates and times. You do them on solstices. Again, this probably would have been a better point to talk about the differences. This is what we've been dealing with for 20 years, and we're going, oh my God, I wish I lived in the Southwest. Well, what I'm telling you is this is true in terms of irradiation, but it's not true in terms of production. United States, the green represents what we have in agriculture, okay? The yellow in the center represents, if we had that in solar arrays, we could produce all the electricity we need throughout the whole United States. That's pretty amazing. It's equivalent to 100 square miles, I believe. Yep, 100 miles. So the big issue comes, okay, where are we come up with 100 square miles of PV? There's all kinds of places to put it. Industrial roofs is probably one of the best because they've got huge roofs with nothing on top, and they always like to make some money for what they do. Warehouses throughout the country, I've been working with one guy over in Illinois. He's got 1 million square feet under roof, and they're very interested. The economics then gets to be a point, and we'll get to that later. There's types of solar energy. There's passive. We're not going to talk a lot about that today. Passive is windows, sun spaces, solar ovens. Active is where PV falls under, and active has some kind of motor, mechanical device involved with it. There's hot air solar panels. They have fans that move the air underneath a plate that heats up. Hot water, they have pumps that move the water. In photovoltaics, they're actually making electricity that runs motors. So you can use photovoltaics to do these other two. And again, it's the conversion of sunlight to electricity. A little bit of the history of it. In 1839, a French scientist, Edmond Becquerel, discovered the PV effect, and it was totally by accident. He was messing around in his lab, and he put a couple leads in a jar of selenium. And he noticed when the sunlight shined on it, he would get current flow. He couldn't figure it out. It took Albert Einstein to figure out what was going on in 1923. And he got the Nobel Prize for just explaining the PV effect. Now, that's a little fact I wish I had known before I wrote my senior thesis, because I wrote it on the marketing and manufacturing of photovoltaics, and it was the worst 12 weeks of my life. Two things happened. It's a very difficult thing to explain, and at the same time I was writing this thesis, all the American PV companies were getting bought up by the Germans and Japanese. And we didn't have find and replace on computers back then, so I'd have to rewrite the whole darn paper every time they sold out. 1954, Bell Labs came up with the cadmium sulfide, 6% efficient. So in 1954, PV was on a level playing field with oil. 58, Vanguard. Now, Vanguard was supposed to be a nuke, believe it or not, and they talked them into using solar instead. They didn't think it'd last very long, so they never put an off switch on it. That thing's still sending signals back. I have no idea where it is now, but they still get signals. One of the big breakthroughs was in 1976 with polycrystalline. Single-crystalline, and we'll get into it a little bit later, they grew cells that were round. Well, if you put round things in rectangles, you get a lot of wasted space. The polycrystalline, they could cast in squares, and they could make them fit in rectangles, and that improved the efficiency about another 20 or 30%. In 1980, they came up with the amorphous. Amorphous is a flexible, they can use electronic disposition to spray the PV effect onto different substrates, glass and stainless steel. 1990, multi-layer thin film technology. That's real complicated stuff. Basically what they're doing is they're using different chemical formulas to capture the photons from different parts of the light spectrum. And then they stack them on top of one another. The only one I know is real successful with that is unisolar, and that is a thin film. Okay, and then 2000.